What is the heart of leadership? Does it look like this?
Precious.
Or does it look like this? Two pictures on my video thumbnail show two figures, Gollum and Elsa. Gollum is saying, "My precious," referring to the ring in the movie entitled The Lord of the Rings, Two Towers. Gollum is clinging to the ring without knowing that he's being influenced by the power of the ring to change into somebody else. Elsa is saying, "Let it go." She's letting go of her responsibilities as the older princess, and she's trying to be herself. She wants to be free, in other words. What I had in mind when I created the thumbnail for this video was to show the attraction and danger of power and leadership. If we are not careful, we can be addicted to power, leadership, and we can become a slave to it. In other words, we can be enslaved by it. Gollum didn't look like the way he looks on the picture. As a matter of fact, he was a pretty handsome man, an ordinary person named Smeagol. But then slowly and gradually, he changed into somebody else because of the power of the ring. In other words, because of the power of the evil desires that was related to the ring, Smeagol changed into someone who looked terrible. And this is what addictive power or leadership can do to people if they are not careful. That is why we have to bear in mind what Gene Wilkes said in his book, Jesus on Leadership, Timeless Wisdom on Servant Leadership. Leadership is on loan. Let me say that again. Leadership is on loan. In other words, an organization or the people lent it to you and you borrowed it from them. When it's time to return it, you have to return it to the people and the organization. In other words, as Elsa said,
Let it go.
you have to let it go. You have to return it to the people or the organization that lent it to you. When we are addicted to something, we do not have control over it. Rather, the object takes control over us and we become a slave to it. Joanne Chula, a leadership scholar, edited a book entitled Ethics, the Heart of Leadership. In the introduction of her book, she observed, leadership is not a person or a position. Rather, leadership is a complex moral relationship between people based on trust, obligation, commitment, emotion, and a shared vision of the good. Ethics then lies at the very heart of leadership. She argues that when it comes to leadership, the question should be, what is good leadership rather than what is leadership? By good, she means morally good and effective. Stephen Covey, who is well known for his international bestseller, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, wrote in the preface to Servant Leadership by Robert Greenleaf something that is very important for us to remember. Sacrifice is the essence of moral authority, and humility is the foundational attribute of sacrifice. Sacrifice and humility should characterize good leadership. Dictators, tyrants, despots are leaders, but they are not good leaders because they are not ethical with moral authority. Hitler was a leader, but he wasn't an ethical leader. In that sense, he was not a good leader with moral authority, nor humility. On the other hand, Martin Luther King Jr. was a leader who did not have a formal authority, but he had informal moral authority because he led with sacrifice and hardship, as well as character. That's the difference between good leadership and bad leadership. The pull of power and leadership is so strong that when unchecked, it can enslave any leaders. There's no exception. Presidents, CEOs, school presidents, the clergy, all can fall victim to this. That's why everyone in leadership and power should watch out for this temptation. That's why check and balance coupled with good followership is so important. I emphasize followership a lot. Whenever I teach leadership, I always make sure that I address the issue of followership. I'm going to create a video on followership in the near future. But here, let me just say that good followership is as important as good leadership. And sometimes good followership is more important than good leadership. Then what does good followership look like? According to Ira Chalif, who wrote a seminal book titled The Courageous Follower, good followership consists of high support and high challenge. Good followers support the leader fully, while at the same time, they challenge the leader when necessary. They love the organization. That is why they focus on the mission and vision of the organization. So they show full support, high support. But when it's necessary, they challenge the leader. According to Ira Chalif, followers are different from workers. Workers, they do what they are told to do. But then followers, they do what they are told to do, but then they can ask questions, and sometimes they challenge their leaders when necessary. So the difference between workers and followers is the ability to think critically and ask questions and challenge the leader when necessary. Nigel Travis wrote a very important book entitled The Challenge Culture: Why the Most Successful Organizations Run on Pushback. He argues that the organizations that allow and welcome pushback and challenge are actually healthy organizations, something that is very important for us to remember. Like I said, I'm going to create a video on followership in the near future. Are you an ethical, moral leader? Or are you being tempted to compromise? Do you find yourself becoming addicted to power and leadership? Remember what happened to Smeagol, who changed into Gollum, someone that he was quite surprised by himself. And that can happen to all of us when we cling to power and leadership. When it's time, we have to return it to the organization that lent it to us. Like two figures on my video thumbnail, we have to make sure that we let go of the power and leadership when it's time,
Go, let it go.
instead of clinging
Precious.
onto it. I hope you like this video. Please make sure that you subscribe to my channel, Daring to Speak, and hit that like and notification buttons. Would you also please get the word out to others who might benefit from this video and many other videos on my channel? I'll come back with another video. Until then, make sure that you protect yourself and others from COVID-19 and keep daring to speak.